The daylight is quickly dwindling, so this is going to be the speediest, most concise reading wrap-up you have ever seen. It's probably not. I'm a very unconcise person. Hi, hello, welcome in, welcome back. How are you doing? I am Flo. I read a lot of books, and I thought we'd chat about them today. It's been a long moment since I've done a reading wrap-up. I kind of scrapped them towards the end of the last year. This is going to be my January and February reading wrap-up combined because, to be honest, I haven't got off to an amazing reading year. I've read 12 books, which for the average person is probably pretty decent. For somebody who makes reading content on YouTube, it's a little below my average, but it's okay. It's okay because while I may not have read as many books as I typically do, I have read some good books. We have a couple of 5 stars in here to chat to you about, so I think we're just going to get right on in with it and do our first reading wrap up of 2025. Cheers! I'm going to start with the 2 books that I don't physically own because otherwise I will forget to talk about them. So, starting strong with a Sally Rooney, we have Mr. Salary. This is probably actually a bad book to start with because it's a short story. It's not a full novel, but I did, however, read it on my journey to read all of Sally Rooney's works. I have read Conversations, Normal People, and Beautiful World, Where Are You? Every single one of those was 5 stars. This was my 4th work by her. It is a short story following, I think one of them was called Suki. I don't know what the man was called, Nathan? Nathan? We're going to call them Suki and Nathan. I hope that's right. It is very classic Sally Rooney. We have 2 people in a unhealthy, possibly toxic, complicated relationship. It's her usual stuff, and you know me. I am a Sally Rooney fangirl through and through. I say it all the time. I think she has a gift, and this short story was no different. It was only about, I think it was 22 pages, something like that, 33 pages. One of them, it was in the 11s. And despite being so short, she got me hooked. I just vibe with her writing. She has a way of making me sad. No, just sad. I was going to list other adjectives, but it is just sad. It very much is a power dynamics conversation. It's definitely uncomfortable to read in parts. You're not backing the couple. I'm not sure you back the couples in any of her books. Maybe in Normal People. I know some people do. I don't know what side of the fence I sit on that. I'd have to reread it. It's been a minute. Her full-length novels are definitely still my favourites because you just get to spend so much more time with the characters. But as short story goes, and as an avid short story hater, I did really like it. Okay, moving on to the only other book that I don't own physically. Another short story collection. What is going on? I don't read short stories. Everything else is full-length novels, I swear. We have Emma Cline's short story collection. You can read the title, I don't like saying it. This is a collection of... I find this one really difficult to discuss just because there's no real plot. And to be fair, the one full-length novel I've read from her, the plot was also relatively hard to explain. I've read The Guest, absolutely loved it, 5 stars. This one is a very similar writing style, but less going on, which is kind of saying something because there's not a whole lot going on in The Guest. That is very much a character study, and I say that with love. I love books where they're just all vibes and no plot. This short story collection is definitely that, and the vibes are strange, I guess. Basically every single story you're following completely different characters, and in every single story the kind of big thing is not said, it's left subtle, it's left unsaid. One of the things that I do think that Emma Cline is absolutely great at is she really trusts her reader. She doesn't over-explain anything. She trusts that you're gonna pick up what she's putting down. And I think she has an absolute gift. I will say, similar with the Sally Rooney, I definitely still prefer her novels. Well, I've only read one, but I prefer the novel that I read. But again, that might be a personal thing. I'm not the hugest short story person, but I do think her writing is chef's kiss, and cannot wait to read The Girls. That's what I'm going to read next, I think. I'm excited to explore more of her works. If anyone has any suggestions, please do let me know. Okay, moving on to the books that I do actually own. We're going to go in no particular order. They're kind of just in a disarray here, and I'm just going to grab whatever I feel like, and we're going to chat about it. Okay, let's start with The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. This is my second TJ Klune book. I read Under the Whispering Door by him, and this is my second read. I had pretty much identical experiences reading both. I went into both of them thinking, this is not going to be for me, I'm not that excited, just not my jam. It's YA, it's cozy fantasy, those are not my genres. If you don't know me, I am very much a unlikable characters, character study, all vibes no plot, dark as anything, those are my vibes. This is kind of the opposite, and yet both books I loved. I think I just vibe with his writing style. In this book we are following Linus Baker, who works for a not very nice management in a very dreary world. There's a lot of rules to follow, there is not a lot of joy to be had, and then he gets contacted by upper management and he is asked to go on a secret mission to this place, this little house on an island in the middle of the Cerulean Sea, and he meets a group of magical kids living at this orphanage run by a guy called Arthur. It's basically wholesome as anything, found family, just cute sweet vibes, which is why I didn't think I was gonna like it. I'm not a cute sweet vibes kind of a gal. Tell me why I was heartwarmed. I was. It was just a really nice change from what I normally read. I listened to the audiobook. Audiobook was great, the narrator did all of the voices, it was just really, really great narration. I wasn't expecting to like it, and I wasn't expecting to like TJ Klune's other book, and I really liked both. So I am thinking of picking up In the Lives of Puppets, is that what it's called? Okay, moving on to a book that is very much more my type on paper, if you will. Yes, I'm watching Love Island at the moment. Rouge by Mona Awad, my second Mona Awad book. I, of course, read Bunny. I loved Bunny. I know that is a Marmite book. I'm very much on the side of enjoying Marmite, and I enjoyed this as well. This is more similar to Bunny than I was expecting, in that I wasn't expecting another complete fever dream book, but this was a fever dream. It absolutely was. We're following Belle, who loses her mother, so she's very much grappling with grief and quite a complicated relationship. And then she falls into this cult. It's a spa. She's basically obsessed with skincare. She's obsessed with all these different lotions and all this stuff. There is a lot of skincare talk in this, and some of the skincare went over my head. There were lots of very long lists of things that she was putting on her face, and good for her, because I barely remember to moisturise, so she's going to age better than me. Not that that was the point of the book. Literally at all. I, if you cannot tell, loved this book. The writing was just absolutely exquisite. There were so many quotes that I tabbed because they were just... breathtaking is not the right word. It's not like lyrical writing. I mean, bits of it are. I just think it was clever and dark, twisted. It was so interesting. Like, it's just an interesting experience. I will say, I think whatever experience you had with Bunny, you're likely to have a similar experience. So if you fell on the side of really enjoying Bunny, absolutely pick this up. If you fell on the side of not enjoying Bunny, I don't know. I think you might have a similar experience, just because I think they are both a bit mind-boggling, a bit you have to trust the process, they're a bit confusing. I will say this one you definitely got a few more answers towards the end, which it's been a while since I read Bunny. I don't think you got answers in Bunny. I think Bunny was very much open-ended. I don't know, is that true? It's been a while since I read Bunny. You got a lot more answers in this, which I wasn't really expecting. It took me a while to read. It definitely wasn't a bingeable book. It definitely was a book that took a bit of brain power, but as a literary horror, it did exactly what I wanted it to do. I really liked this. Okay, completely different vein. If you can't tell that I read every genre, I read every genre. We have a cheeky little contemporary romance, Next of Kin by Hannah Bonam-Young, my first one by her. This was so cute. The banter, genuinely funny. This is a story about two people who basically end up adopting their younger siblings for different reasons, and they move in together as part of a program to basically help support each other, and not really a spoiler, have a romance. I will say the romance in this moved very quickly. They definitely fell in love quick, but it was written so well that it didn't bother me when it would bother me in most books. It was just funny, good banter, good times, and I have been in a pretty big romance slump for the best part of a year, really. I kind of come and go out of it, and about once a month I have a full like existential crisis where I'm like, maybe I just don't like this genre, and then I'll read a book like this and I'm like, oh no, it can be done really, really well. I think I just have a specific type of romance that I like, and I do like one with a heavy plot, and that was definitely this. If you took the romance out, this still would have been an interesting book. And because she took the time to build the characters and make them lovable, it meant that because you liked each of them on their own, when they got together, you were really rooting for the couple. Then, I think the only book that I've ever read by an anonymous author, we have Slender Man. I bought this when I was working and living in Edinburgh last summer. I think it was at the Edinburgh Book Festival. I was in the little bookshop that they have at that event, at that festival, and this caught my eye, partially for the very cool, simple but like gorgeous cover, and then I opened it and I saw the mixed media. And yeah, that got my attention. I am a sucker for mixed media because I have ADHD and reading can be a bit of a struggle for me. And if you're making me turn pages left, right and centre, it just scratches something in my brain. It makes me want to keep reading. And so this was literally like reading a comic because the entire thing is made up of emails, text messages, journal entries, audio notes, like the entire thing is mixed media. That being said, the actual plot itself was very simple. We're following Matt. It's like is he in high school, I think? He's in school, he's a kid. And then someone in his class, his friend Lauren, disappears and he's basically trying to figure out what happened. And it's obviously to do with Slender Man, which if you don't know the lore, I don't really either, to be honest, so I'm probably not the best person to describe it, but it's like an internet creation. It's like this creature that the internet kind of took and ran with. It's based on that, and he's basically trying to figure out what happened to Lauren. It is a very simple plot. It definitely relies very heavily on the mixed media, but as a book slump book, literally perfect. Quick, easy, I flew through it. You can read this in one sitting, absolutely, for sure. It's just a really nice, quick, easy book to get through. Let's move on to a book that I am absolutely convinced is going to be in my top 10 books of the year. It is very early to say that, so that is a big thing to commit to, and yet I'm convinced that this is going to be in my top 10, and that is Shark Heart. This was every type of breathtaking that you can think of. It is a slightly weird literary fiction, which is very much my jam, and I will say it is quite weird. We're following a couple and the man is turning into a great white shark. As far as I can tell, that entire concept is basically a metaphor for terminal illness and kind of coming to grips with that. We're following his journey of turning into a shark and then how he copes with that, but equally how the people around him cope with that. So his wife, how it affects every element of both of their lives. We followed that for half of the book, and then we basically follow different people for the other half of the book. It's kind of connected, kind of not. They do feel like two very separate stories, but the vibes are definitely the same. It took me through a loop for a minute because I did think we were following the same story the whole way through, so I definitely was a bit disappointed at first, because I wanted to continue this first story, but actually I do think it was perfectly done because that first half of the story had finished and it was time to move on to something else, and I ended up loving the second half just as much as I loved the first half. It goes without saying, this was a 5-star. I loved this. I tabbed so much. The writing is breathtaking, and this is another one that is kind of told in mixed media, and as I say, I love mixed media. The main character is an actor. If you don't know, I'm also an actor, so I deeply resonated with a lot of that stuff. And elements of this are told through play extracts. There are parts that are like tiny little vignettes, poems. It's a love story, as it says. It's not a romance, it definitely is a literary fiction. But if you like something a little bit weird, a little bit character-driven, please check it out. I'm telling you, this is going to be in my top 10 of the year because I thought this was absolutely stunning. I think it's a debut as well, which is rude. How is this your debut? It's so good. Then I thought it was about time I picked up another Taylor Jenkins read because it had been a moment. I've read Carrie Soto, The 7 Husbands, Malibu Rising, One True Loves, but it was time to read another, so I picked up After I Do, which is one of her slightly older ones. I want to say 2018. No, 2014. This is way more of a like straight romance than some of her later books that I think people know better, so 7 Husbands, things like that, where they're a little bit more historical fiction, contemporary fiction, just like straight fiction, whatever. These are definitely leaning more romance, but not like next of kin contemporary romance. They still have more literary feels. This one follows Lauren and Ryan. They meet in college, they fall in love. You watch that entire arc pretty quickly at the start. You watch their entire meeting, falling in love, getting married, blah, 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 their entire arc. And then you watch the demise of their relationship. Basically, after they've been married for a while and they're not getting on so well and they're not having a good time. And they make the decision, the difficult decision, to spend an entire year apart. Now, is that a good idea? Debatable, but it did make for interesting reading. And one of the greatest things about this book is how Taylor Jenkins Reid showed you both sides. She showed you the bits that were sweet and the bits where you did really, really want to root for the couple and want them to be together. And then it showed you the bits where you thought maybe they shouldn't be together, maybe they're just not the right match. And it leaves you really, really torn. Or maybe not leaves you, but throughout the book, I think anyway, you feel torn, which is a lovely reading experience because it's so easy to lean one way or the other and just have the audience be quite frustrated with thinking like, oh, just do this, it's so obvious. It didn't feel obvious. To me, anyway, it felt like a genuine relationship where it is complicated and it's not straightforward. It's her second one of her sort of older series, so One True Loves, this one, the kind of older, more straight romance ones. I definitely think my favourites are still The Seven Husbands, Carrie Soto, the kind of more recent Fame series, but I just think she has such talent for writing. She's literally never missed for me. So then another author I have read from many times before. I actually have a lot of repeat authors here, which is rare for me. I feel like normally I read a lot of authors for the first time, but Michael Grant is an author I've read from many, many times before, and another 5-star read. This is Light. This is the last book in the Gone series. I'm not going to bang on about it too much because I feel like I have done nothing but speak about this book series recently. But this is a YA dystopia series about all these kids trapped in a dome, all the adults disappear. It's kind of a Lord of the Flies situation if some of them have magical powers. It gets very, very dark. This was the final book. It broke my heart. I said in a video that if something happened to a certain two characters that I was going to be devastated and I was going to fight Michael Grant. And yeah, I think we're gonna have to fight because you ripped my heart to shreds with that ending. That being said, it was a very good ending. It can be so difficult to wrap up such a big book series. I think this is 6 books, they're pretty big, and you're also following an entire town of people. So you're following 20, 30 main characters. That can be so difficult to get an ending right that feels satisfying, that wraps everyone up. And I think he did it, and I think he absolutely nailed it. That being said, it ripped me to shreds. It broke my heart for one particular character, well, 2 particular characters. That will never be forgiven, ever. Honestly, I've never been more upset at any book in my life than I have at this one. But it was 5 stars. It was probably my favourite in the series, which is saying a lot because I've loved all of them. Oh, my camera's flashing and we have 3 books left. That's fine. Okay, an author who I haven't read from before, but I was very excited to start. Fredrik Backman with A Man Called Ove. I have seen everyone reading his books this year and last year, and I figured it was about time I read one. I started with this one. I'm glad that I did. I feel like everyone knows the plot of this, but just very, very quickly, we're following this grumpy old man he's got a lot going on in his life, and it's basically a very sweet, heartwarming story of him getting to know his neighbours, basically. This was gorgeous. I didn't think I was going to cry, and then I wept like a baby. I feel like everyone says this, but he just has such a unique writing style. He has these little asides which are so specific, but so funny, sarcastic. He's just a very witty writer, and I've seen him talk before, just like on videos, and he seems like a very funny, witty man in real life, so that kind of checks out. I'm very excited to read more from him now. I want to read My Grandmother Sends Her Regards and Apologises, just because I think that is such a cool title, and I think Beartown. I think those are the 2 tipped off my TBR. I've actually never heard anyone read the one about the grandmother, so if you have read it or know anything about it, let me know your thoughts, but I just think that's a great title. I am a sucker for a long title. Then we have a book that is advertised as a romance, and I'm here to tell you, It is not a romance. It's great, it's 5 stars. It's not a romance. This is Writers and Lovers by Lily King. For the life of me, I cannot figure out why this is advertised as a romance. I cannot figure it out. The cover looks like a romance. If you read the back of the blurb, it's like, oh, love triangle. It's not a romance. It's not a romance. It's great. It's really, really great. It's not a romance. Is there a love triangle in it? Yeah. Yes. Kind of. It's not a romance. It's not a romance. In this book, we're following Casey, who has just lost her mum. To me, that is absolutely what the story is about. It's about her grappling with adulthood, grief. It's about her learning how to cope, basically. Having just lost her mother, she does meet 2 men. She kind of is dating both of them, but I think that is such a small part of the plot. I guess the ending of this book definitely falls a little bit more into that, which almost surprised me because I just didn't feel like reading through it that that was what the story was about. I think it's a literary fiction. Whatever it is, it's excellent. It is so well written. I gave it 5 stars. It has the classic character study, messy relationships thing that I really liked, but it had a bit more of a hopeful undertone, which isn't normally my thing. I really like hopeless books. Like my Year of Rest and Relaxation. I like books where everything is bleak. This actually wasn't that. It had the elements that I really like, but it was a little bit more hopeful. So I think if maybe you like elements of literary fiction, but you do like a more hopeful, happy-ish undertone, this might be one for you. But it's not a romance, and I don't know why it's advertised as one. Anyway, rant over. I loved this. It was 5 stars. Okay, my camera is really flashing. We have 1 book left. This is The Children Act by Ian McEwan, a very famous author, but this is my first book from him. This is a, I guess, literary fiction as well. Maybe just straight fiction about a high court judge called Fiona, and she takes a case of a young boy who is a Jehovah's Witness, and he is in hospital and he needs a blood transfusion to save his life, but for religious reasons he doesn't want one. And it is basically following the moral dilemma and the legal dilemmas around that case. It also is following a little bit of her backstory, the judge's backstory of her husband who wants to have an affair. That is the opening scene. It is such a great opening scene. I wish there was more of that because I really found that such an interesting backdrop to the story. Generally speaking, this was very well written. It's definitely a book where I felt a little bit torn. I don't really know completely how to feel about it, just because it is such a complicated situation. I think Ian McEwan did a really great job of seeing everything from everyone's perspective and giving everyone fully fleshed out thoughts and arguments and reasons for wanting to have different outcomes to this situation. It's a very interesting read. I've never heard a review of this book or have anyone who's read it, so someone discuss it with me. I want to know what people think. I'm glad I read it. I'm glad I finally read an Ian McEwan book. It definitely is a heavy read for sure. Do check your trigger warnings. Glad that I read it. I don't know if I'm going to keep this copy though because it's really bashed up. That is all the reading I have done so far this year. I think my favourites of the year so far, I'd probably go these 3. Rouge, Writers and Lovers and Shark Heart, which makes sense. Literary fiction is definitely my favourite genre, so it makes sense that my 3 favourites were the literary fictions, but I do think this is the best book I've read so far this year. I just adore it. Please read it. That is us done. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you being here. My camera is flashing like anything, so I'm going to wrap this up quickly. But subscribe if you haven't already. I would love to have you. We have fun videos coming out this month, so stick around. Like the video, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and I'll catch you in the next one. Love you, bye!